afternoon. I just want to talk to you for a moment about the connection between light and Christmas, and particularly Advent and light and Christmas. I don't know if you ever notice how much light seems to come about at Christmas, right? What do we do with our Christmas trees? We put lights on them. A lot of people put lights outside their homes. There's all this connection between light and Christmas. And why do we do that? Well, it's because it's a great metaphor. I mean, you could say, well, it's because it's the darkest time of the year, right? I mean, we're dealing with the fact that it's the winter solstice happens on December 21st, and then 4 days later is Christmas. And so we're celebrating Christmas that time of year. It just makes sense to put some lights out. But the fact is that there's actually a biblical reason why we do that, and it actually flows all the way through the scriptures, pointing to the fact that we are in darkness and we need light. Let me point this out to you. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, it says that God possesses immortality and dwells in unapproachable light, whom no man has seen or can see. You see, God starts off in all of eternity. This is before creation. God has always existed in unapproachable light. He is one that we cannot see. It would kill us if we saw him because of the glory of his person. This emanates from his glory. We actually are going to see that later on as we come to the end of the story. But what happens at creation? Remember that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. You see, the darkness was a part of what God broke into when he created the world. So there's nothingness, there's darkness, and what does God do? He says, let there be light. And when God says, let there be light, the world floods with light. Again, it emanates from who he is, from his glory. He sources that light in himself, because it's before there's ever a sun created, which happens on day 4. And so we recognize that there is this great work of God that he's doing in the world, in creation, to create light, but we wreck it because sin brings darkness back into the world. And we see this connection all over the scriptures of sin connected to darkness, but one place in particular, Isaiah 9, talking about the Gentiles and how they don't have the light, says the people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. So you recognize there that there's a connection between sin and darkness. Those who are refusing God and refusing light will walk in darkness. And so this is not only a messianic prophecy, it's also saying something about the nature of sin and the weight that it has in our world. As we go forward, we think about the fact that, Isaiah is prophesying that there's going to be a light coming. And what happens? Well, on the night of Jesus' birth, in the night, the glory of the Lord shines on the shepherds as the angels appear, and his light bursts on the scene in the day of his birth. Of course, John says that in him was life, and his life was the light of men. Later on in John, he records that Jesus said of himself, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. That's John 8:12. And so we recognize that in Jesus is all this encapsulated light, all of the unapproachable light of God's glory brought into flesh in humanity. And he's walking with us and he's showing us the light of God's glory. And then what happens? He's killed. And on that day, darkness, 3 hours of darkness weighs upon the earth. And it feels, even though the darkness dissipates, it feels like darkness for the next 3 days as we wait for Easter morning, and it's on dawn on Easter morning. But just as the sun rises, the sun rises. He rises from the dead. He's raised from the dead, and he goes forth in victory over death and over all of the darkness. He's on a mission to put darkness to death. And he's going to do that. He's still working on that. Right now, he's working on it in your life. He wants to put darkness to death in your life, but there's coming a day when Jesus is going to put darkness to death for good. There will be no more darkness on this planet. When we come to the last days and after Jesus brings in the kingdom, and he defeats Satan one last time, the new Jerusalem will come out of heaven and the temple will be there. And what does it say in Revelation 21 about that? That the city has no need of sun or of moon to shine on it, for the glory of the Lord has illumined it, and its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by its light. You see, Jesus is coming to eliminate darkness. He's come to eliminate darkness, and he wants to eliminate darkness in you if you will yield to him and trust him. Will you let the light shine on your heart this Christmas? Don't be without hope. Don't be in darkness. Let Jesus erase your darkness.